Thank you so Kane, how you doing today?
I'm good. How's everything there?
Awesome. I'm such a huge fan of yours. Thank you so much for your time.
My pleasure. I appreciate it.
Well, let's talk a bit about the new film here, Victor Crowley. What are the listeners in for if they haven't seen some of the earlier ones?
Well, you're in for a violent good time. The thing I love about the Hatchet films, and people that know me know that I wouldn't say I love something unless that's actually true. I wouldn't just say it to try and promote something I'm connected with. I fully love the Hatchet movies, and because the character I play, of course, is very violent, but the scenes that are written with that, I most often never have to add my own twist to it. What I'm referring to is in the Jason films that I did, in the Friday the 13th films, I felt like I always had to add my little flavor to a kill, as I would term it, in one of the movies to make it a little more interesting. With the Hatchet movies, the way Adam Green writes the kills, they are so graphically written as on the page that I don't have to do too much of my own interpretation. But beyond that, the way that the dialogue is written is so clever with Adam Green that it makes the scenes in between the violence just as entertaining, if not more so, because of the interaction of the characters. And he's brilliant at casting actors that can bring that. And it's just, I just enjoy watching the movies because so often in a violent film with a killer like that, the scenes in between the violence can drag, but not with the Hatchet films. I think they're just as entertaining, so that's why I like them even more.
And again, this is the fourth in the series. You know, it's great. You've created another iconic horror character spanning several films here with the Hatchet movies.
Well, yeah, I mean, I feel very fortunate because, you know, I'm known as playing Jason for 4 films. Now I'm known as playing Victor for 4 films. Totally different characters, similar in some ways, but obviously totally different. And I just feel very honored to have been able to do that.
Well, and you mentioned adding some of your own flavor to the Jason films. I imagine the flavor you added back in the day probably is the reason the films nowadays are the way they are, because you kind of set that groundwork and influenced all the people making the movies now.
Well, I mean, I hate to presume that, but that's a nice thought, that if something in my performance resonates with the fans, and if anything, I think it's that when you play a character that has no voice, and then with the Jason situation, no facial expressions, it can be very difficult to look scary or to be scary, because those, as an actor, those are your 2 biggest tools, your face and your voice. Now you take away those 2, and now you have to be scary. Often people will look like they're acting, in my opinion, in that kind of character because they're trying too hard. Somehow, I guess whatever I do looks more natural to some people, so I feel very fortunate that people feel that I'm not acting. And I don't know if that should bother me, because maybe that reflects on my real personality. I don't know. Regardless, it's a good thing.
Well, you've done just about every kind of stunt work you can imagine over the years. And, you know, you've been on camera as an actor, you know, without the mask or the makeup. So I'm assuming maybe that gives you an advantage over other actors to be able to handle both.
I think it does. If you can do the physical stuff, you know, easily because you're trained in it, now you can also do the dialogue. I think that does give a little advantage when the physical stuff is needed. So, and in my opinion, it's not very often that someone can do both well. So I'm not saying I do, but people have told me that they enjoy it. So I'm hoping that could be true. But yeah, both of them are so difficult to do on their own. Then if you can do both sides of that kind of acting, then I think it's an advantage.
Well, with, I guess the way technology is and, you know, and CGI and the way films are made, do you feel like maybe the stuntman is kind of a lost art in a way? Are we kind of getting away from the way things used to be done?
You know, I don't think it'll ever get to the point where stunt people aren't needed, certainly. but CGI and, in particular, wire work has, if you know what I mean about when some of these big action movies have a lot of stunt people on wires, so flipping around and, doing things like that. So that has impacted how we shoot things. But, I'm one of the old school stunt people that used to make a living just hitting the ground, as I term it. Now there are stunt people that I talk to that work on these big action movies that don't hit the ground very often because they're on wires. So I'm not saying that's any easier to achieve, but it's certainly easier on the body. So the impact type stunts may be lessening a little bit, but maybe that's better in the long run because, I have bad knees now after 40 years, and obviously I got burned, so that didn't help the whole situation. So, it's maybe a little bit less hazardous cumulatively, but, we've lost a couple people in the recent years, a couple stunt people, and that, we're always very proud of the fact that not many people die as a result of performing a stunt. So that's, been a little tough the last couple of years.
Definitely. Well, again, the new film from the Hatchet series, Victor Crowley, is out. And, Kane, I got to say, I met you a few years back at a convention here in Minnesota, and, you're nothing like the bad dudes you portray on the screen. Is it tough to get into that mind frame, I guess, or kind of flip that switch when you're on the set?
Well, I mean, it probably sounds self-serving, maybe, but I never have difficulty turning that switch. I've always maintained that, if you have a spectrum, and if you're imagining a spectrum of personality, on the far left is most people's personalities, a regular person. On the far right is a psychotic, murdering, horrible person. I lie somewhere in the middle as opposed to on the far left. So it's easy for me to get to that point on camera. I don't know how else to explain it other than I can bring the rage needed very quickly, and I'm not sure if that speaks well to my real personality, but that's how it is.
Well, again, the Victor Crowley is out, and, looking at your work online, you're pretty much from one film to the next. I don't think you've really ever taken a break, but, I got to ask you, of course, if there's maybe any rumblings from the Friday the 13th franchise. Are we going to see maybe don the hockey mask again?
Well, as you know, that I never wanted to stop wearing the mask. I was happy when Adam Green approached me with the Victor character because I just love playing characters like that. And he had a different take on the character, and I fully embraced it and feel like he really enhanced my horror career. But I never wanted to quit playing Jason, so if it ever became a possibility again, I would embrace it fully because I still feel like I have more to show as that character. And what better time to bring me back for one last time, if that's what you want to say, than the 13th movie. Because there's been 12 Friday the 13th films now. The next one would be the 13th, and I happen to be the only person to play Jason in more than one film, and I did 4 in a row, so I could only imagine how much I would enjoy it.
Awesome. Again, I'm a huge fan. Thank you so much for your time today. I really appreciate it.
No problem, man. Hope to see you again soon.
All right, you too. Bye-bye.